So, the socialist camp in Europe ended. Fortunately, this happened without military actions or other hustle and bustle. There were no cries about crossing red lines. There were no threats of using nuclear weapons, although at that time the Soviet Union had a lot of them on its western borders, in Belarus and Ukraine. The socialist camp was liquidated quietly and systematically, as if according to a pre-written script. The Soviet Union was also liquidated by the Soviet authorities as a legal entity. This happened at the famous Congress in Belovezhskaya Pushcha on December 8, 1991. Here, the legal representatives of the three Union states that had founded the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, RSFSR, the Belarusian Soviet Socialist Republic, BSSR, and the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR, signed the agreement on the establishment of the Commonwealth of Independent States. In the very first paragraph of this document, the high contracting parties state that the USSR as a subject of international law and a geopolitical reality ceases to exist. From that moment on, not only the socialist camp ceased to exist, but also the Soviet Union, which stood at the head of all this socialism. And in its place, the Commonwealth of Independent States, CIS, was created, which prudently did not include the former Soviet Baltic republics, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, which then miraculously organized borders with Russia and Belarus, which allowed them to subsequently join the European Union. In other words, everything went according to plan. As was apparently agreed in advance, the great and powerful Soviet Union, 45 years after the historic victory in World War II, returned the socialist camp to Europe and itself, as it were, disintegrated, self-liquidated. But it immediately rose from the ashes in the form of the CIS, having lost 3 Baltic republics along the way, which immediately joined the European Union of States. This is where the first part of the Mals and ballet ends. The West got its own back. But where did the Soviet Union go? But nowhere. How nowhere? That's right. The Soviet Union continued to happily exist, now as a Commonwealth of Independent States. The empire hasn't gone anywhere. The metropolis exists. It hasn't even changed its name. And what, actually, has changed? 3 letters instead of 4. CIS instead of USSR. No? But the states did become independent, a thoughtful viewer, listener, or reader will object. Then let's figure out what an independent state is. After all, the CIS is the Commonwealth of Independent States. And the primer clearly states that independence begins with the borders of a state. And then, suddenly, it turns out that Ukraine does not have an internationally recognized border not only with Russia, but even with Belarus. And what about Belarus? Ukraine does not have a properly formalized border with Moldova, not to mention Transnistria. International law recognizes a demarcated border between states. This is a border marked on the ground with special signs, regarding the installation of which the bordering states sign an agreement on border demarcation. Ukraine has no such agreements with Russia, Belarus, or Moldova. Thus, independent Ukraine has properly delimited and demarcated borders with Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania, with which it aspires to form a union. But it has no demarcated borders with Russia, Belarus, and Moldova. Now let's answer the question about the collapse of the former Soviet Union together. So what collapsed there? There are no borders. Trains run. Gas flows. Oil flows, as it did before. And so on. And the fact that people begin to live worse, ice cream tastes bad and sausage is expensive, this is not a problem of the collapse of something that has not collapsed yet. This problem has a different name. But I will tell you about this next time.